Hey, what's up everybody? Mr. On Demand here, man with Master Plan, back again for another great video. And today we're going to talk about some PC gaming myths that sound right, but really aren't. Let's go ahead and check out this article here. And I thought it had some very useful information. So let's go right over here. So the first one is PC gaming myths. And here we go again, debating some widely held beliefs about PC gaming hardware. PC gaming is a topic that encompasses so many aspects: graphics, gameplay, performance, optimization, hardware, bottlenecks, frame pacing, generated frames now with all these new NVIDIA cards, and more. That believing in some of the other myths is inescapable in this list. I want to shed light on some of the most popular gaming related myths that people hold dear. First one here is ultra settings look much better than high settings. The words ultra, psycho, ultra nightmare might sound uber cool, but maxed out settings in almost every title aren't worth the performance hit. It might be tempting to scale everything up to 11, including maximum ray tracing and path tracing settings, but even the flagship GPUs of today, they can't handle that at native resolution. In most demanding games, dropping just one preset below the maximum can net you a lot more frames without the visible drop in visual quality. Now, I've noticed this. You have to find a happy medium in some of these games for some of the settings. And really, it kind of depends on the resolution that your monitor can handle, how good your video card is. And you kind of got to tweak the settings a little bit when you first get a new game for yourself and what you're willing to, deal with. Shooter games and so on are going to be much more dependent on having a good frame rate because you need it to be smooth while you're, moving your head around, looking at everything. Whereas certain games, you might want to raise up the quality level as opposed to the frame rate. It just depends on the game. Every game is going to be a little bit different in that. Most great gamers should try to use very high or high settings to strike a great balance between impressive visuals and smooth performance. Granted, today you have tools like upscaling, 4x frame generation, which is only available on the new NVIDIA cards, the 5000 series. And personally, I wouldn't buy one of those right now at all, but that's my own personal opinion. I'll leave it at that. It's worth checking if your PC can run the game at playable frame rates at high settings before defaulting to DLSS, FSR, or XeSS. Thing you got to know about these generated frames with the new 4x frame generation and everything is they're fake frames. The quality isn't going to be as high as real generated frames on a video card. The real generated frames are going to be clearer and look much better than fake generated AI frames. So this is the reality of the situation we have today. Everybody needs to understand that they are fake frames. They are just interpolated from a real frame what the next frame should look like. Basically, the computer's guessing to tell you what the next frame should look like. Now let's go ahead and go to ray tracing. Ray tracing automatically makes games look better than others. Is this true? Not always. Not always. Ray tracing and path tracing are often considered the gold standard for gaming visuals. If a game boosts ray tracing, and that's the thing is we had the RTX line, where they went from GeForce to RTX, and they started, pushing this ray tracing idea. People don't know ray tracing was already around a long time ago. So ray tracing is just, the way the lighting works in a game to, generate reflective shadows and everything. But, the ray tracing effects compared to one without them, at face value, many games might declare the former as the winner. The reason for this is you get better performance. You're going to get better frame rates and smoother gameplay. Ray tracing doesn't even give you sharper graphics. It just gives you maybe a more realistic feel in some cases. However, what actually decides the battle is the ray tracing implementation by the developer. Even in 2025, only a handful of games really make use of ray tracing to its fullest. This is an important fact to understand. For instance, many titles that technically support ray tracing will only use one of the following ray trace shadows, reflections, or lighting. You'll be hard-pressed to spot a ray tracing in action in a title like Dead Space 2023. Yeah, this is all true. Ray tracing, in my opinion, is absolutely, there's very few titles that are absolutely even worth the ray tracing when it comes to gaming. Photorealism equals immersion. These days, many game studios are caught in hyperrealism arms race. Photorealism was once a highly sought after quality in games, but once we achieved it, the law of diminishing returns kicked in fast. The belief that the more real or lifelike a game world or character looks, the more immersed the game will be, is flawed, since realism alone is insufficient. For truly immersive experience, realistic graphics need to be complemented by an arresting art style, deep lore, engaging gameplay, and playable frame rates. Well, basically what they're saying is the game needs to be smooth, it needs to have a good storyline, be written well, and be fun to play. That's really the bottom line. I mean, to make a good game. Some older games are still way more fun to play than some of the newer games, and it has nothing to do with the graphics of the game. Every time an announcement trailer teases hyper-realistic visuals without any information on the gameplay, story, or characters, I silently cringe. I agree with this person on that aspect of gaming. Despite upscaling techniques like DLSS and FSR being almost inevitable for most new titles, many purists still rally against them. Their rationale is that upscaling a lower resolution image to a higher resolution one will never look as good as the real thing, i.e. native resolution. While that is technically true, it doesn't matter if you can't spot the difference. Modern upscaling algorithms like DLSS4 and FSR4 have reached a point where an upscaled image is indistinguishable from a native one. And I've talked about this in with the streaming applications, new TVs, new new TV streaming boxes, the built-in AI capability of upscaling from a 1080p to a 4K movie. You're not seeing a huge difference. This is why most of your companies like Netflix and Amazon and everybody are mostly just streaming in 720p or 1080p, and the stuff is getting upscaled. But from what I've seen, you still need a really, really good 1080p image for it to upscale to 4K and look really well, at least for my eyes. Today, if you enable quality or balanced upscaling presets, you get a free boost in performance, since the visual trade-off isn't visible to most gamers. So I would agree with that. The upscaling, AI upscaling, absolutely is something terrific that will help a game out. Since NVIDIA's RTX 50 series brought multi-frame generation to gamers, the conversation around frame generation has blown up significantly. AI-generated frames exist even at the time of the RTX 40 and RTX 7000 series GPUs, but the downside of 2x frame generation weren't as apparent as with 4x frame generation. This comes down to NVIDIA just pushing the envelope a little too much and giving us a little too many fake frames because their hardware that they're making just can't do what they want it to do. And they want to give you a false sense of that their product can do, oh, this much performance. No, it's a bunch of fake performance. It can do about a fourth of the performance that you're showing us it can do. In reality, you're getting a bunch of fake frames and the quality ends up getting degraded with all those fake frames. 4x frame generation is not what it's cracked up to be, in my opinion. Since more aggressive frame generation exacerbates visual artifacts and latency penalties, AI-generated frames are much worse than conventionally rendered ones. Absolutely 100% true. This means that frame generation is only usable when your GPU is already able to generate high enough frame rate, with or without upscaling. Since budget GPUs get the shortest stick in the regard of frame regeneration, it isn't really a savior for them. Enabling frame generation below 60 frames per second will make a much worse experience than doing it above 100 frames per second. The unavoidable performance overhead and additional artifacts will introduce a greater negative impact in the former scenario, making the game unplayable in many cases. This is so true. And that's not even taking into account the frame generation, actually generating frames with imagery that's not correct, like somebody missing an arm or letters not being, legible because the AI can't distinguish it. High-end GPUs are necessary for high-end gaming. Let's see. This is an understandable misconception, particularly because it was true until very recently. After the launch of the RTX 40 and RTX 50 series, however, you don't need the greatest cards for a high-end gaming experience. 1440p high refresh gaming has become more accessible than ever, especially after the launch of GPUs like the Arc B580. The new that's the new Intel video card. Hopefully Intel continues to push out better products because that's a pretty good product for a very budget price for people. And cards like the RX 9070 XT have even brought 4K high refresh gaming to a much larger consumer base. The belief that you need $800 to $1,000 graphics card for the best possible gaming experience is simply not true anymore. The enthusiasts will still go for the RTX 5090 or an RTX 5080 of the world, but GPUs below $600 have made no compromise. Gaming is possible for the masses. There's still work to be done in the budget segment, which doesn't have many new NVIDIA or AMD options to speak of. That said, things are looking promising on the AMD and Intel front. I'm excited to see the next few offerings from the companies. I am too. I thought this was a really good article, and I think it sums up the gaming experience on PC really well today. When I read through it the first time, I was like, I need to talk about this on my channel because there was a few things I wanted to talk about, especially with the frame generation and especially with everything going on with NVIDIA right now, which I am going to do a separate video on. So if you're interested in that, subscribe to the channel right now so you can see, hear my views and get a detailed, of all the things going on with NVIDIA over the last year and a half or so, that just makes the company a dumpster fire, and I wouldn't touch any of their new 5000 series GPUs, and the 4000 series weren't very good at all either. Seriously, you're way better off sticking with the new AMD video cards, or getting one of those entry-level Intel cards if you can. That's my opinion. Save some money, spend that money on some other things that can give you a better experience for your computing experience. Anyways, that's my views on things. This is Mr. On Demand, and hopefully you liked the video. If you did, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, let me know down below why you didn't like it so I can try to do a better job in the future for you. And otherwise, leave me a comment of maybe a video you would like to see me do, a tutorial or how to do a certain type of thing. I'll see you guys in the next one. Talk to y'all later.